couple who decides to go through the IVF process know that they have thought about it a lot. You are prepped with a lot of hormones, a lot of injections which are painful. There were days my back would hurt because of the injections. Every day I would have to go to the doctor and they would check the follicles. They would see if the follicles had matured. They had the right stage to be taken out. So, literally I was going to the clinic every single day to do an ultrasound and check my follicles. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now I know this video is a long awaited video. So many of you requested me on Instagram to share my IVF journey. I finally thought, let me sit down and talk to you guys about what happened, how it went, and so on and so forth. But of course it's a lot, so I'm going to try and break down the video in a couple of parts. The first part today being where it all began and why I chose to do IVF. I think that's a very important question to answer before we kind of move on to the process itself. So without any delay, let's dive right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about and kind of clear to everyone in this process is that any couple who goes through the IVF process, it's important to understand that it's not an easy process. Whether it's elective, whether it's something they are doing because they have no choice, or whether it's something that they're doing because of any medical challenges, any couple who decides to go through the IVF process know that they have thought about it a lot. It's not just financially taxing because the whole IVF process is very expensive. It's physically very taxing. It's emotionally very taxing. There are so many components to the IVF process that people are not aware of unless you really go through that process. So I remember sharing my IVF story on Instagram and a lot of people saying, why didn't you just adopt? Why do you have to go through this process? Why is a kid necessary? And to all those people, I'll say that having a child is a very personal decision. Whichever route you go through, whether it's you go through it through the natural course or you go through IVF, adoption, surrogacy, know that every couple would have thought day and night about it and weighed in their options and everything before making a big decision like that. And similar process was for Kaushik and I. We actually thought a lot about it before we were like, okay, let's go this route. It's not something we just got up one morning and say, hey, it's easy, let's take the IVF route, because it's not easy. So that's something I want to add as a disclaimer before I start the video, that there was a lot of thought put into before we opted for this process. Now, people can do IVF for various reasons. They can do it because they want to bank their embryos. They can do it because they want to freeze their eggs. They do it because they have medical issues or challenges in conceiving. They can do it because both the spouses are not in the same place at the same time. Situations have arose where couples are not together. It could be a loss of a spouse, or a spouse is in some other country. There can be so many reasons to go for the IVF process. In our case, for Kaushik and I, we reached a stage where we were ready to have kids. We knew that, we wanted to have a child. We were mentally, physically, emotionally, financially ready. It was the right time. So of course, we naturally started trying. In that process of trying, a couple of months into it, we realized that maybe we should get ourselves checked, because then we'll have a baseline on where we are going to go from here. So when that process happened, even though we hadn't completed a year of trying, we did get ourselves checked, everything done. And what we realized, something that I wish that as a child when you grow up, you would know better and they would teach you better. The whole process of conceiving, woman's body, how the eggs are formed, at what age do they start declining, the quality, the quantity. There are so many aspects to conception. And for some people, it may be very easy. They may conceive in one try. For some people, it may take longer. Some people may face challenges. Every case is so different that I wish growing up, these concepts were taught to us better. So anyway, when I got my eggs checked, what we realized is that the quality and the quantity of eggs matter a lot in the process of conceiving a baby. As you grow older, they kind of decline, and that's a fact. But the way to kind of buy a little bit of time for yourself is through freezing your eggs or freezing your embryo. And what we also realized that as much as the age of the mother is important, what's more important in conceiving is the age of the egg. So if I froze my eggs, say at the age of 32, but I decided to conceive at the age of 36, the quality of my eggs will still be of the age 32 because that's when I froze them. So that's something that kind of changed my perspective, and Kaushik and I sat down and we had this conversation that today we want one kid. We've always thought of having one child, but if for any reason tomorrow, we want to have a second baby, knowing my egg quantity and quality and my age, it might get harder at a later stage. So we wanted to have that optionality, keeping my health, the quality of the eggs and quantity that came in the report, everything, keeping all that in mind, we decided to pursue IVF. Of course, if we wanted to have just one kid, then we could have still gone through the process of trying naturally. But if we ever changed our mind and we wanted to have a second baby, I think it was important that we froze our embryos, just keeping everything in perspective. So we decided to go the IVF route. We met with our specialist. We went to RSC, our Reproductive Science Center, and the staff and everybody was amazing. We worked with Dr. Eisman, she was amazing. She was just very, very important to our journey in the IVF process, because at every stage, she was very clear on how a process needs to be, what are the challenges that might arise, and how we can resolve it. And she was always there as a doctor for me. And anyone who's going through the IVF process, I think it's very important that you trust your care team and that you trust the decisions, because even though the process is the same for everybody, the medications, the frequency, the entire strategy and plan varies from individual to individual. So what works for me may not work for you. And therefore, if you don't trust your doctor, it can get very hard, especially when the cycle is going on, or if the cycle is not successful. There's a lot of blame game. So in that case, if you trust your care team, you will know that they have your best interest in heart. So it was very important for me to have that chemistry with my doctor, and I knew that she understands what my limitations were. So we went through the entire process. Of course, we were told to keep our expectations low, because it's not easiest that you may get the number of eggs you want, then the number of embryos, and genetically they're all healthy, and then it transfers and then it becomes successful. There's a whole lot of things involved in the IVF process. And I can go into detail in my later videos, but there's a whole process involved. The first step being they kind of prep your body, prime your body, so that there are more eggs formed in your body. Then they retrieve it, and then they have to mature, fertilize, then you do the genetic testing, and then you kind of have the number of embryos, and then you finally get to understand how many embryos you have. So first of all, expectations were set. We went through genetic testing for both Kaushik and I, and then we started the whole IVF process. Touch wood, we were very lucky that we got the number of eggs that we kind of expected and we wanted, with our future plans in mind, but the whole process of IVF itself was very taxing.
Yeah, you tend to respond better on the right hand side, left hand side for you.
All the best, all the best. Kaushik ready to inject me.
Yes, part of the
He's become such an expert.
Here you go. One tiny dot. Alright, let's go. It's bleeding.
It's okay. You did very well. You are prepped with a lot of hormones, a lot of injections which are painful. There were days my back would hurt because of the injections. But because we both knew that the end goal was something that we really wished for, it kind of makes the process 0.1% easier, if I may say, because it's very taxing hormonally for a woman. getting into the detail, we started the process in May 2021. We were already consulting with the doctors earlier on, early in the year. So we had been speaking to them, taking a check on our body, health, if anything had to be done before we actually started the IVF process. So there are a lot of success factors, and we wanted to make sure that we had everything in place. I was fit, I was healthy. They started me on thyroid medications and, a couple of other vitamins and medicines that would help my body be prepared for the whole IVF process. Again, these are just my experiences. Everybody is different. Like I said, you should speak to your doctor, consult with your doctor what your body needs or what it lacks. So, we had a couple months of weaning me off contraceptives and then, priming me with different kind of medications that would help me be ready for the process. Once my body was ready, we started the IVF process, which involved going to the clinic a lot, taking injections every single day. I still remember we started on my birthday and I was so scared. Kaushik was watching the YouTube videos and, already the doctors had set up a consultation with nurses for us to kind of learn how to inject each medication, because the dosage and the way you inject it is very different.
Until all the medication is injected. Gently withdraw the needle and apply pressure to the injection site with a sterile gauze pad. Once your injection is complete, dispose of the used needle.
This lighting suits you a lot. You look
Flip
extremely
off plastic cap
handsome.
of the Gonal-F multi-dose vial and wipe Remove the wrapping from the other needle for administration. Twist the administration needle onto the syringe. The syringe is now ready for administration.
I'm staring at your beautiful face. So we had already seen the video, but even on the actual day, you're so nervous, you're so anxious because there's no scope to make a mistake, that we were rewatching all the videos and trying to learn, and then, Kaushik is the one who injected me because I was too scared to inject myself. So he was the one who actually was like a pillar for me through the whole IVF process. He was the one who was injecting me, taking care of the medication. So I am very, very thankful to him. I know he's equally involved in the process as I am, but he took a lot of the ownership in helping me take the burden of the medication from my mind and just focusing on my body. The injections were, of course, painful. Wasn't easy, I will not lie. But it wasn't that bad as well. Again, everybody reacts to pain differently. I think I have a little bit of a higher threshold. And so it was a little easier. Towards the end, it became very painful because every day you're taking the injection on the same spot. And some of the injections kind of hit you harder than the rest. They're more painful once injected. But again, really depends on your threshold. I do think it's still manageable. It's not as bad as I had thought it would be. And I think the process itself took 2 weeks, 2 weeks of injections. And then, once my body was ready, every day I would have to go to the doctor and they would check the follicles. They would see if the follicles had matured. They had the right stage to be taken out. So, literally I was going to the clinic every single day to do an ultrasound and check my follicles. There was a stage that there were a lot more follicles than what was taken out. But, if we waited longer, we could already lose the good ones we had. So we made a decision to, go for the egg retrieval. And that I will talk to you guys about in my second video about how the egg retrieval process was. But this is pretty much the background of how our IVF process started. So anyone who's trying for the IVF process or trying to conceive for a child, I think the first thing you need to do is seek a specialist and get both partners tested. Check the health of the sperms, check the health of your eggs, see where you stand in terms of your hormones, your thyroid levels, vitamin D levels, because these are very essential in the whole conception process. So find a specialist who you trust, get all this done, and then you have a baseline on where you stand, and then you can seek the help of a specialist or an RE or go to a reproductive center and figure out what your course of action is. But the first thing is just test yourself. And I wish more and more gynecologists promoted women taking control of their health by getting these tests done much earlier in life rather than waiting much later in life. Because as much as we have progressed in life, our body still has a limitation, and that's something we still need to kind of accept. And that's something I realized a little late in life, that our body has its limitation. So at least if you're aware of where you stand, you can accordingly make the decision. I'm not saying have kids early, I'm not saying go for the IVF process, but every woman should have a control of their body. They should be aware of what's happening inside. I think that's very, very important. So that's something I would recommend anyone who's going through this process. And if you guys have any questions, of course leave it in the comments below, or you can DM me on Instagram. I'm pretty active there on socialnupur, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. My next video will be about the entire egg retrieval process and a few other things that Kaushik and I learned in the process. And so yeah, thank you for joining me in my journey, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, lots of love. Bye. I'm recording a video, but you can come in. What to eat? Give me 5 minutes. I'll be done in 5 minutes.